You're sitting on the ice. You've got the $20 glow-in-the-dark tungsten balanced jig that the guy at the tackle shop swore was magic. And you're watching the sonar. Nothing. Meanwhile, old Dave, 50 feet away, is pulling walleye after walleye out of the hole with a plain hook and a 10-cent shiner. What in the world is going on? Today, we're tackling one of the most infuriating questions in fishing. Why do our most expensive high-tech lures get completely ignored while the simplest, cheapest setup gets all the action? And I promise you, the answer isn't just that's fishing. There's a real science and psychology behind it, and understanding it will completely change how you approach your tackle box. We're going to uncover the subtle mistakes you might be making and reveal the one thing that a simple minnow has that no lure, no matter how expensive, can ever perfectly replicate. But first, I have to ask, have you ever been that guy with all the fancy gear getting skunked? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear your stories. Look, we've all been there. We walk into a tackle shop and there's a wall of lures that look more like jewelry. They promise more flash, more vibration, a unique action that fish can't resist. And we buy into it. We spend hundreds, even thousands of dollars over the years, convinced that the next hot lure is the key to success. The belief is that technology equals results. A more expensive engineered lure must be better than a simple piece of meat on a hook, right? It's a habit. We trust the marketing. We see the pros using them on television, so we tie one on, jig it the way we've always jigged, and expect the fish to cooperate. But the fish, well, they haven't seen the commercials. They operate on instinct, not advertising. And that's where the expensive lure often fails. Let's start with the most obvious factor: scent. A live minnow hooked through the back or lip is constantly releasing scent into the water. It's a distress signal, a chemical trail of amino acids that screams food to any predator in the area. Your expensive jig, on the other hand, smells like plastic, paint, and maybe the inside of your tackle box. You can add artificial scents, and they help, but they are a poor imitation of the real thing. It's like the difference between a scented candle and a real steak on the grill. A fish's sense of smell is incredibly powerful, and on a slow day, scent is often the only thing that will get them to commit. The minnow offers a scent trail that no factory can perfectly replicate, and that alone gives it a massive advantage from the moment it hits the water. Now consider natural movement. That $20 balanced jig has a very specific, engineered action. It glides, it circles, it flutters. It's a repetitive dance. But a struggling minnow has a chaotic, panicked, and unpredictable movement. It twitches, it darts, it tries to flee. This random, desperate action signals a truly easy meal to a predator. It's the visual equivalent of a massive neon sign that says, "Free lunch, no effort required." Fish are wired to conserve energy. They will almost always choose the meal that requires the least amount of work. The perfect rhythmic action of a lure can sometimes look too perfect, too mechanical. The flawed, struggling dance of a real minnow is often far more convincing. Think about the fish's perspective on a tough day. Let's say a cold front has moved through and the fish are lethargic. They are sitting on the bottom, not actively hunting. They are not looking to chase down an aggressive, darting lure that zips around their head. That kind of presentation might even spook them or seem like too much work. Now picture a minnow on a hook, just hovering there, occasionally and twitching. It's a low-effort, high-reward meal just dangling in their face. It doesn't require a chase, it requires a simple gulp. In these neutral to negative moods, which account for a lot of our time on the ice, the subtle, non-threatening presentation of live bait will outperform an aggressive jig almost every single time. This brings us to the biggest mistake anglers make: overjigging. It's the #1 sin when using expensive lures. We feel like we have to do something to make that $20 investment work. We paid for the action, so we want to see it. We pop it hard, we shake it, we rip it up and down, we feel productive, but what we're often doing is making the lure look completely unnatural and intimidating to the fish below. We are creating too much commotion. The best anglers know that with many lures, especially balanced jigs, the subtlest movements are the most effective. But our own impatience and the desire to make something happen often leads us to spook the very fish we are trying to catch. Contrast that with a live minnow presentation. What is the best way to fish a minnow on a hook or a small jig? Often, it's to do almost nothing. You drop it down to the right depth and you let the minnow do the work. The rod tip just barely quivers as the minnow swims. This forces the angler to be patient. It forces you to slow down and trust the bait. This enforced patience is often the real key to success. You're not trying to impart some magical action onto the lure. You're simply presenting a natural food source in a natural way. By taking the angler's frantic movements out of the equation, the minnow is free to do what it does best. Looks like an easy meal. Let's talk about what I call the uncanny valley of fishing lures. In robotics and animation, the uncanny valley is the feeling of unease people get from a robot that looks almost, but not quite, human. The same principle applies to fish. A high-end lure can look almost perfectly like a real bait fish. The paint job is flawless, the shape is perfect. But if one small thing is off, the way it moves, the sound it makes, the hard texture when a fish mouths it, a wary, experienced fish will reject it. It's too strange. A live minnow, however, is never uncanny. It's just real. It has the right texture, the right smell, and the right imperfect movements. It never sets off those "something is wrong here" alarm bells in a fish's brain. Another critical factor we often overlook is water clarity. The effectiveness of a lure is hugely dependent on how it's perceived. In stained or murky water, an aggressive, rattling balance jig can be a superstar. Its sound and vibration can call fish in from a distance, helping them locate your bait when they can't see well. But take that same lure and put it in a crystal clear lake. Now that same aggressive action can look fake and intimidating. The fish can see every unnatural jerk and every bit of painted plastic. In that clear water, the subtle, realistic look of a live minnow becomes far more appealing. It doesn't look out of place, just looks like part of the natural environment. Then there's the unavoidable issue of fishing pressure. Think about popular lakes that get fished hard all winter. The fish in these waters are educated. They have seen thousands of lures. They have seen every color of balanced jig, every size of rattling spoon. They have learned, sometimes through being caught and released, to associate those repetitive movements and artificial sounds with danger. They become conditioned to avoid them. But a live minnow, that's always just food. It's what they've been eating their entire lives. There's no negative association with it. Presenting a natural minnow is like hitting the reset button, showing them something they are genetically programmed to eat, not to fear. Let's not forget the simple profile of the bait. A balanced jig has a rigid, hard body profile. From below, a fish sees a solid, unchanging shape. When it comes up to investigate, it's a distinct, man-made object. A live minnow, on the other hand, has a soft, organic profile. It's subtle. It flexes and moves with even the slightest currents in the water. It looks alive even when it's barely moving. This subtle, natural silhouette is far less intimidating than the hard, sharp lines of a piece of molded plastic and metal. It's a small detail, but in the underwater world, these small details are everything. Fish are masters at spotting things that don't belong. The bite itself is a major difference, and it determines your hookup ratio. When a tentative walleye or perch comes up and mouths a hard plastic jig, it feels wrong instantly. It's hard, it's cold, it's unnatural. The fish is likely to spit it out in a fraction of a second, often before you even have time to react and set the hook. And this is why you see so many marks on the sonar that just disappear. Now imagine that same fish mouthing a soft, natural minnow. It feels right. It tastes right. This encourages the fish to hold on longer, or even to swallow it completely. This gives you a precious extra second or two to feel the bite and set the hook properly, drastically increasing your chances of landing that fish. So, what about the trigger? Lures, especially aggressive ones like balanced jigs, are designed to trigger a reaction strike. They appeal to a fish's predatory aggression. The fast, darting motion is meant to make a fish strike out of instinct without thinking. And when fish are active and aggressive, this works incredibly well. But a live minnow appeals to a different, more fundamental instinct, a simple feeding response. It's for the fish that is just hungry, not necessarily angry or aggressive. On many days on the ice, especially during midday lulls or in high-pressure weather, fish are not in an aggressive mood. They are in a feeding mood, and for that mood, the simple meal is always the best choice. Consider the devastatingly effective do-nothing approach. It's a technique that's hard for many active anglers to accept. Picture this. You drop a lively minnow on a plain hook down the hole. You set it on a dead stick, a rod just sitting in a holder with the bait about a foot off the bottom. You don't jig it, you don't move it, you just let it sit. That presentation screams, "I am injured, and I am the easiest meal you will find all day." It's irresistible. Now try doing that with a $20 balanced jig. If you let it just sit still, it's just a dead, lifeless piece of metal and plastic hanging in the water. It has no appeal. The ability to do nothing is one of the live minnow's greatest strengths. Now let's talk about versatility. We often think of lures as being versatile because they come in so many colors and sizes. But are they really? To be effective, you often have to match the hatch, meaning you have to pick the right color, the right size, and the right action to imitate what the fish are currently eating. This can be a frustrating guessing game. A minnow, on the other hand, is the ultimate in versatility. It matches the hatch because it is the hatch. It's the genuine article. It works for walleye, perch, crappie, trout, pike, virtually every predator that swims under the ice. You don't have to guess the color pattern. You just have to present the real thing. Here's a hard truth about our own psychology as anglers. We want the expensive lure to work. We have a powerful confirmation bias. We spent good money on it, we saw it on a YouTube video, and we want to believe it's the magic bullet. So we'll fish it longer than we should. We'll stick with it in conditions where it's clearly not the right choice, just to prove to ourselves that it was a good purchase. With a cheap hook and a minnow, there's no emotional investment. If it's not working, it's easy to change things up. But that $20 jig, it's hard to admit that it's failing. Our own ego can be our worst enemy on the ice. Think about the sound signature of your presentation. A rattling balanced jig sends out a consistent, high-frequency, man-made sound. It's designed to be loud and attract attention, but a struggling minnow on a hook sends out something entirely different. It emits subtle, low-frequency vibrations as its muscles contract and its tail kicks. This is the true dinner bell of the underwater world. It's a sound that fish are genetically programmed to investigate, not with caution, but with curiosity and hunger. It's the sound of vulnerability. While a loud rattle can be great for calling fish in, the subtle, natural sound of a live minnow is what often seals the deal and convinces them to bite. Let's discuss the drop, which is the way a bait falls through the water column. This is often when you'll get bit, and it's a critical part of the presentation. A balance jig is designed to glide and circle on the drop, covering a wide area of water below the hole. It's an aggressive searching action, but a live minnow on a simple hook or a small jig head has a much more natural fall. It flutters and struggles on the way down, looking vulnerable the entire time. It looks like a bait fish that has been injured and is helplessly sinking. This can trigger a strike from a suspended fish long before your bait ever reaches the bottom. It's a built-in, natural attraction that artificials struggle to imitate. This leads to the common mistake of a one-size-fits-all mentality with expensive lures. Anglers will often buy one or two popular high-end balanced jigs and try to force them to work in every situation, on every lake. But the simple hook and minnow rig is infinitely more adaptable. You can instantly change the size of the hook to match your minnow. You can add or remove a split shot to change the fall rate. You can lengthen or shorten the leader on a slip bobber rig. You can switch from a plain hook to a small jig head. It's a modular system that can be fine-tuned in seconds to match the depth, current, and mood of the fish. It is far more customizable than a single, fixed lure. Here's a classic scenario: the negative mood bite. A massive cold front rolls in, the barometric pressure skyrockets, and the fish get a classic case of lockjaw. They are glued to the bottom and won't move or chase anything. In this situation, trying to force-feed them an aggressive, darting balance jig is a complete waste of time. You're more likely to scare them than entice them. But what can work? Carefully lowering a lively, wiggling minnow on a tiny hook and just dangling it right in their face, holding it perfectly still, inches from their nose. This slow, tempting, in-your-face presentation can be the only thing that will break their funk and generate a bite when absolutely nothing else will. Let's be honest about complexity versus simplicity. To be truly effective, a balanced jig often requires a specific rod action, the right line type, and a learned feel for the cadence that takes time to develop. You have to learn how to make it dance correctly. A minnow on a hook, however, is incredibly forgiving. Even a complete beginner can catch fish with it because the presentation is so inherently natural. The bait does most of the work for you. It removes a huge amount of potential for human error. You don't have to be a seasoned pro to make a minnow look appealing. You just have to put it in front of a fish. Finally, let's circle back to the most important tool in fishing: trust. You need to have confidence in what's at the end of your line. It's often easier to have unshakable confidence in a live minnow because you know, without a doubt, that it is what fish eat every single day of their lives. And there is no question that deep-seated confidence translates into more patience. You'll soak the bait longer, you'll pay closer attention to your rod tip, and you'll have better, more timely hook sets. The expensive lure is always a question mark. You're hoping it's what they want today. The minnow is a statement. It is what they want. And fishing with that kind of certainty makes you a better angler. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's not that your expensive balance jigs are garbage. They absolutely have their time and place, especially for aggressive, active fish that are willing to chase. But the reason that simple minnow so often wins the day comes down to one word: authenticity. The most expensive lure in the world is an imitation of life. The minnow is life. It has the right scent, the right movement, the right texture, and it appeals to the most basic, powerful instinct a fish has: the need to eat. We as anglers often get so caught up in the technology and the marketing that we overthink the entire process. We try to force a reaction strike when all the fish really wants is an easy meal. This should make you look at your tackle box differently. It's not about having the most expensive lure. It's about having the right tool for the fish's mood on that particular day. And sometimes the most advanced, effective tool is the one that's been working for 1,000 years. Thank you so much for watching. If this sheds some light on your own frustrating days on the ice, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more content that cuts through the noise. We're all about what really works. And now I want to turn it over to you. What is the one old school, simple technique that you swear by that consistently outfishes all the new fancy gear? Drop your secrets in the comments below. Let's start a conversation.